When you hear that sound, you know your morning is about to get even better. Top of the morning to you. Welcome to your perfect day start of the morning brief. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Yes, we're up bright and early as usual. Good morning and welcome to your perfect day starter. I am Bukola Koka.
And finally, Kayode's January 31st is upon us. Good morning. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
A pleasant January 31st eventually.
Yes, after 200 days. It wasn't 100 days, it was 200.
200 days.
I did the calculation again. Someone did a song and said, by this time last year, we're already in July.
Maybe there was so much dirty December to enjoy, so we got lost in it. So much spending.
There needs to be some sort of research about that. I know the figures speak a lot when you see how much a lot of people spend in December. Just, I think Shortlet alone told that story. Imagine what people spent on food, which is something we're not really...
and drinks.
And drinks, right? Maybe they spent multiples of that. And you wonder, when would we ever get to the point where we really capture data appropriately? Because I think it will do us a lot of good as a people. It will help us with planning. It'll help us understand where we are. It will give us that picture. I mean, our census, for example, we're still approximating. It's safe to say that we're approximating data that we gathered since 2006, almost 20 years ago. So if we're not able to get data, we're not able to keep reinventing and improve on ourselves, you wonder what's all the conversation about when we don't have data?
And speaking of data, perhaps we should be more deliberate about another dirty December that may be upon us anytime soon. And just take an inventory of what we had spent in the last dirty December, so that the next January that will be upon us will not be like January to August, as Kayode has said. So planning is at the heart of it. And before we begin to even talk about leading at the national level, we must be good leaders of ourselves first of all. So all of the bills that come in January do not take up space in our pockets and in our minds, because that's where the battle is, really, the mind.
I think I've told people one of the best ways, it may not be sufficient, but if you start putting aside some money, say in January, February of, like right now, ahead of January next year, you'll be surprised. In fact, if you're able to put out some amount of money, no matter how much it is, you put out some amount of money, by the time you get to December, so imagine you put out 10,000, that's how much now?
120.
So if it depends on your level of how buoyant you are. 100,000, you can imagine how much it is. It may carry to the end of December. It may not carry to the end of the
weekly, Jeffrey.
No, monthly.
No, I'm saying for people who can afford it, they can do 10,000 weekly.
And then if the money gets to a certain sum, you can actually buy T-bills. You understand? Our treasury bills now for days like 300 days, for instance, now you see T-bills of like over 300 days, city bills of 23%.
Jeffrey, T-bills as in treasury bills.
Treasury bills.
Break it down to some.
Sorry, treasury bills. So basically, if you have,
where can I buy into the market?
Yeah, no. Just download some of these apps.
Okay, so I don't have to go to a supermarket.
No. Just go to any of these apps, download it, and there are a couple of apps that you can buy shares and stocks and all of that.
Who provides the T-bills? Who sells it?
It's the federal government.
The federal, okay. It's not like, all right. I need to just be clear on this.
No, this is federal government borrowing, asking citizens to borrow them money.
Okay.
So they...
I've been appealing to Jeffrey for a crash course on this.
So we're doing 101 this morning.
101,
the point I'm making is that if you're averse to risk, you don't have high risk appetite to buy crypto or equities that you can go up and go down, your blood pressure will be jumping like that. You just buy things that are safe and secure, You will not lose your interest.
We're not letting you off the hook. So if I buy it now, because I need to use that money in January of next year,
okay.
How long will the federal government hold it for before I'm able to say, give me back my money, or at least give me my money?
I think that depends on the options that you pick, but Jeffrey will provide more answers.
So for instance, let me use #1,000,000 naira.
Good.
Just generally 1,000,000 naira. You put it in T-bills for 365 days, if it's that, and they say 20%. So 1 million is 20% of 1 million is 200,000, right? So what happens is that if you're putting the money in T-bills, federal government can take, for instance, 999,000. But when they are paying you back, they'll pay you 1.2 million.
And they can pay me in time for
it's
January
discounted
next year.
interest. It's discounted ahead. You understand? So you're not paying. So at the end of the day, no, they'll pay you on the day. I've bought T-bills.
So they'll pay you the...
So, for instance, if you want them to pay you on the 2nd of January, it depends on the days maturing. They'll put, if you buy now,
different days, 300.
So, if, for instance, you buy it's per annum.
Yeah.
It's per annum, for instance. So that 20% is per annum. That means you must keep it for that 1 year. But if you choose to do, if you see 20% and then it's 6 months that is given, they prorate it. So 200,000 less of 100,000, which is 100,000. That's half of it. So
you could do half of a million naira for T-bills.
So if they say everything is per annum. So even if you want to buy T-bills for 3 months, you still see per annum. That means if it's 20%, you did 3 months, divide it by half, and then divide it by. So that's how it works. What I'm saying in essence is that there is no risk involved. Federal government cannot owe you on this particular one. Yeah. They can. I can guarantee you for that.
So Jeffrey, are we part of the, you people, are you part of the debt burden of the federal government?
Not really. The federal government needs money every time and again to do short-term obligations. So what I think government does across board is they borrow Peter to pay Paul. So as you bought and it ends, say, in April, they float almost every 2 weeks or so. So it's just like that.
So some of these funds are lifted to offset some of our debts. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, for short-term obligations. T-bills are no more than 1 year. Eurobonds can be 2 years and more. So the longer you keep the money, the more interest you have. That's the simple principle of investment. But if you have good risk appetite, you can make that 20% in 24 hours.
There you go.
Okay, so
we're going to talk about that.
You can lose it in 24 hours as well.
That's investment 401.
You can lose it in 24 hours as well.
I think we may have done 101, 201, 301, and
this
401.
next one is 401. We'll talk about that some other day. But
we're just advising people who they should just learn the saving culture.
Absolutely.
It may not be much. With 10,000, with 20, you'll be shocked how much you save at the end of the day.
You're welcome.
We are talking about planning for ourselves and perhaps by extension educating Nigerians to also take a cue from this, but our government officials also thinking along those lines for planning for the population, and this causes me to reflect on the story from Thursday night where the Nigerian Immigration Service intercepted 20 children illegal minors on the border to Niger, somewhere in Gaidam, I believe, and is reminiscent of some of the commentary coming from Niger State last year about the presence and discomforting concern about child minors in that particular state. And the story is that hunger, poverty, insecurity is increasingly pushing children into becoming illegal minors. And this is regardless of that ban sometime in August 2024 on illegal mining, even the entire mining activity itself in Niger State. Of course, that was lifted, but that did very little, to discourage illegal mining activity in that state. The budget of Niger State in 2025 is over ₦1 trillion. So it goes back to that concern about planning. Is Niger State planning for the number of out-of-school children in its state? What is its budget on education? If the administration continues to boast that it can do without allocation, what is the evidence on ground about putting more and more children in school such that the families are empowered, so to speak, and can improve learning outcomes, such that we can plan for the future? There is no evidence on ground if we're having stories like this about the investment in human capital development in Niger State. Guys, what are you tracking?
Well, we're tracking what's happening on the show this morning. It's good to mention some of these things. And power is one of the biggest issues, really, and I think on that list of headaches which Nigerians have, power is naturally top on that list. And African leaders, heads of states and governments, met in Tanzania recently, and they put pen to paper, something that went below the radar, right? Nigeria's president was there, Nigeria's Minister of Power was there, and they put pen to paper. Mission 300. What is this about? This initiative is aimed at promoting clean and sustainable energy solutions. Well, we'll look at how it affects you, perhaps how it will make your life better, otherwise. And what is the duration, the time frame? That's what we're starting off on the show this morning.
No, not be all. Okay, we'll bring you some of those updates. When your phone says update, don't be afraid to update. The experts will be telling us on PC Fix right here on the program.
And besides that, how important are relationships to us? Relationships are an essential aspect of human life. So Dr. Stephanie Ihiri, a relationship expert, joins us to provide enlightenment on how we can build stronger, long-lasting relationships, as well as understand the importance of emotional intelligence.
Dr. Steph Ihiri.
So buckle up for some sports. Would I say just kit up for some sporting action on the show this morning, because we'll be looking at the role of sports in building confidence. Our guest, Ofyong Edem, who has represented Nigeria in table tennis in various competitions and at various levels, joins us to share how the sport helped her build a winning mindset.
Not just sports, Ofyong Edem, and we will talk music. Fast-rising Afro soul singer Mars will also join us on the program.
So you may think it's coming from Mars down to the studio. I'm sorry, I had to just use that. It was just there, I had to take it. Well, you could be a part of the show. Absolutely. Head over to WhatsApp. Let's know what you think about some of our major talking points. We'll bring you the newspaper review much later on the show this morning, and we're giving you something very different. We're going on the street to bring you real-time newspaper review on the show this morning. But you can be a part of the show. You see the WhatsApp number on your screen any moment from now. There you have it. So pictures, videos, messages only. If you've got questions you need us to ask for you or to raise, send them our way, and we'll absolutely prosecute them.
All right, well, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to check in on the weather somewhere around the north. Join us again. Welcome back. It's still right here in the morning around the world. Okay, in some parts of the world, it's still morning. Some parts have even gone to afternoon. But right here in Nigeria, we're still talking about the morning. So let's check in on the weather and what's going on. We've been joined in the program by our correspondent in Kano, Mr. Sadiq Ilyasu, joins us to bring us up to speed as to the weather condition in parts of the north. Sadiq, good morning and welcome to the program. Oh, yeah. So, Sadiq, okay, as we try to connect with Sadiq, we're just trying to find out exactly what the weather condition is. We understand Sadiq is back. Sadiq, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty well, Sadiq. So, walk us through what the weather condition is, say, around Kaduna, around Kano, around Sokoto, and parts of the north that you have that data available to you.
Well, let me start by telling you what is similar within this cities you mentioned. Actually, generally the weather is chilly, especially in Kano, which is going to have the at its lowest, which is 10 degrees Celsius, and at its highest, it's going to be about 32 degrees Celsius. But generally, in other states, it's also similar. But the problem is that the air quality index is actually very, very poor. And for instance, in Sokoto, it's going to be a bit less cold than in Kano, which is going to be 17 degrees at its lowest, while at its highest, it's going to be 34 degrees Celsius. While in Kaduna State, it's going to be at its highest, it's going to be 30 degrees. At its lowest, it's going to be 16 degrees. And in Katsina, it's going to be 31 degrees. And when it's lowest, it's going to be at 14 degrees. This weather condition has been changing. Well, for instance, last week, it was a bit hotter than today. And this is having a serious effect in the irrigation farming that is going on, especially for the wheat farmers. Where they needed the weather to be so cold like it is today. But unfortunately, because of the climate change, it's changing. This week it can be cold, and next week it can be a bit hot. So this is the situation here in the Northwest.
Before I let you go, Sadiq, let's talk about how the people are coping with the weather right there. Is it affecting how they are dressing, how they are doing business? I know this is a recurrent decimal. Every other year you experience this, but especially in January, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, a lot of people are wearing cardigans, face masks, and what have you. And even experts have been advising people to wear face masks because of the quality, the quality of the weather is hazy and it is very poor for health. So a lot of experts have been advising people to wear face masks. So you can see people moving behind me, moving on bikes and what have you, wearing cardigan, face masks and what have you. So this is the situation.
All right, just before I let you go, from the report you gave, apparently a couple of parts of the north, the air people are breathing is not quite healthy, given the index you've provided for us. In your view, and maybe have you ever spoken to some of the medical experts that it's time for people to be wearing masks intermittently, because we only did that during COVID. After COVID, everybody went back to normal.
Well, a lot of people are even already wearing the face mask because of the weather. But I spoke to one of the experts yesterday at the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital. He actually said it is necessary for everyone to wear face masks because there are people suffering from asthma and pneumonia and breathing-related diseases which are at risk during this time. So people are strongly advised to use face masks during this time.
So just an addition to that, there is no policy of government to say people should be wearing masks or health, insistence by the government, given the health of people. The reason I'm asking is drugs are quite expensive. Literally everything is expensive. And if you combine poverty and bad health, it's not a good combination at all.
Well, there's not any policy from the government or even an instruction from the government to asking the general public to be wearing face masks during this time. But as I'm telling you now, a lot of people have even chosen to start wearing face masks themselves without even hearing it from the government. So it's good for everyone to wear face masks during this time.
Thank you so much. Sadiq Ilyas, you are correspondent from Kano. We'll check in on you if there's anything in terms of the weather updates in that part of the country. Thank you. All right, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll talk about energy sustainability. African leaders converge on Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and they've committed to, providing electricity, power, to about 300 million Africans. They call it Mission 300. We're going to probe that and talk about it and find out exactly how they want to achieve it. Join us again in just a moment. All right, let's get started and talk to you about what you've been saying on X. And maybe we'll begin with that sad incident involving that plane, media collision is called, between a commercial airline and, we showed this yesterday, commercial airline and a helicopter, military helicopter. So you can see, look at those boxes, the commercial airline approaching the military helicopter, and then that explosion happened. No survivor as we speak. There has been all kinds of blame game. Who is responsible, what is wrong. President Trump has spoken. But there have been messages as well from across board reacting to this particular incident, including conspiracy theories that have been formulated around this Kayode Bukola. But the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has actually expressed his deep sympathy and condolence to the American government in the incident near Washington. So I think that's the very first we'll talk about.
Absolutely. The president said in his statement, I'm deeply saddened by the tragic incident. On behalf of Nigeria, I extend our heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims, the people of the U.S., and all affected by this profound loss. It's been said that this is perhaps the biggest air accident in almost 20 years now in the United States. So you understand why this is a big deal across the world.
It's very worrying. I can imagine how traumatic it is for people that experience 9/11. You just boom around wherever you are, and I'm a bit at a loss as to, with the technology they have and the controls they have, the helicopter looked stationary, the plane was approaching. What really went wrong? When they get the black box or whatever device is used to find out these things, I think we'll get to the NTSB is on it already. Yeah. But case 1030 says, for those lives lost at DCA, my perpetual light shine upon them, and may God through his grace give comfort to their grieving families and friends. Amen. Bukola.
Well, amen to that. T-Crash FPV says one of the aircraft must be flying with the transponder off, because it's rare for aircraft to crash into each other mid-air. So I guess the transponder must be an equipment inside one of the aircrafts that is supposed to provide information on traffic in the airspace. You know, just talking about traffic in the airspace itself is sort of a paradox because it's air, really. So there shouldn't be any form of congestion in movement. But this is a sad one. T-Crash continues by saying there's a system called ADS-B in aircraft that tells other aircraft its position in space, including altitude, speed, name, and more.
All right. So we'll move over from there while we expect, of course, the outcome of that, the investigation. Sometimes these things take a while, but of course, a lot of people cannot wait, particularly because of some of those conspiracy theories you talked about, Jeffrey. But let's come back home here in Nigeria, where a major launch held yesterday, and that's by the NNPC Limited, launching or beginning the construction or the groundbreaking of 5 mini LNG plants. I understand this took place in Ajaokuta. And Jeffrey Bukola just reminded me of the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano natural gas pipeline. Remember that? That was a big deal during the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. But I would like you to just take a look at what this is about, because this is meant to be groundbreaking, really, and pun clearly intended. Not just a groundbreaking ceremony, but it's meant to be some sort of groundbreaking event. So what are you saying about it? A lot of people think this is massive, right? And a sure way for sustainable energy generation in Nigeria. That's from Onogu Mohammed, saying that NNPC Limited be assured that your business and infrastructure in Kogi will be jealously protected and guarded by the people of the state. So I imagine someone from the state making those promises. And that's another point usually. You see some of these infrastructure projects cited in communities and areas. And the security, yes, the security agencies are responsible for protecting that, but also the communities are responsible as well. So it's saddening when you see some of these installations being vandalized. And the community people tell you, we don't know, we just slept and woke up and this happened.
Just give the protection contract to the community.
And you will be well protected.
That's not the best way to get these things done. So if anything happens, they know who did it.
Right.
All right, Dr. says the only way Nigeria will have sustainable growth is if intentional economic decisions like this are made, and I'm happy that the NNPC Limited is taking the lead. This is laudable.
Well, according to the information provided by our correspondent, it appears that it's an ambitious project that will solve a lot of our gas needs, including, the provision of CNG, which is a critical product that will help our energy transition from fossil fuel to cleaner energy. And many more Nigerians want to actually transit from petrol to gas. But Baba Gana Goni says this project will not only enhance business opportunities, but also create direct and indirect jobs to Nigerians. We are grateful to the entire NNPC and NNPC Limited for the best deliveries. Looking forward to quality and quantity energy. Quantity and quality are key to meeting demands, because there's still energy insufficiency as far as CNG is concerned for the consumption needs of Nigeria. That's it from Babagana Agoni.
All right. I think the next one has to do with the EndSARS protest. I think former governor of Osun State, Bisi Akande, the elder statesman, in a podcast had made statement. Now, I didn't listen to what he said, but they said part of the comments he made was, he said the EndSARS protest was designed to end Tinubu. I don't know what that means. I don't know the context of which Tinubu was not the president of Nigeria. It was Muhammadu Buhari. So I do not know the context where I was saying. And for a matter of fact, with the greatest sense of respect to the elder statesmen, there's no such thing as ending anybody's government in our view. The police authorities, some of them were going rogue and reckless, and everybody saw that. And it was just like a ticking time bomb. That was some kind of a revolution to change the entire police architecture and reposition our police for better effectiveness. Of course, certain people hijacked it at some point, but to say that the protest itself was to end anybody's government, I don't think that is entirely correct. But it's his views. As I said, I don't know the context for which he was saying. Fonabia says With all due respect, sir, please share your evidence using facts and figures. Thank you.
It's interesting. Some of the comments, the quotes, what he said was that the obedience were behind the EndSARS. It was manufactured from America just to stop Tinubu. I know Mr. Peter Obi has spoken about that, saying that that's an attempt to rewrite history. I know Deji Ajayanju says that he and Showore were the ones that started EndSARS. Some will say, well, EndSARS even started a while back with Segalink, for example.
Actually, that name,
driving that, let's end police brutality, and that's why there was a lot of, conflict. The truth is this, Jeffrey Bukola, a lot of the things that went down then, I've still not been fully unraveled, even by some of the people who participated in that protest. And it's very interesting how you think you know a lot, but you do not know as much as even the people who are at the forefront of the protest. So he has said his view. Mr. Obi says that's an attempt to write history. We're not going to have it. Other people are claiming and saying we started the protest, but we are just here to give you all of those statements and you make that decision. But naturally, this will be, of course, brought under serious scrutiny.
Some people may have been caught in the fray of the EndSARS protests. Some investments that may have belonged to some politicians may have been caught in the EndSARS protests. Perhaps that is the context within which the former national chairman of the party was talking about. But that is in no way representative of the facts of the origin of EndSARS. Indeed, there had been pockets of protest by Nigerians prior to that time. And the link to Segalinks is actually accurate, with people coming out to say that their family members had been brutalized by police, and indeed it had to end. And of course, it took on a life of its own in 2020. So it was not in any way designed to end any individual.
We all saw the,
particularly, as Jeffrey said, who was not the president at the time.
We saw and reported the recklessness of the bad elements of the police. It was just going to happen one day somehow. Now, if some people saw that as an opportunity to do any other thing, that's a different kettle of fish. That's my argument. But to dismiss the young people's attempt to take their country and do the right thing, to say, police, you have to be more responsible, I think it doesn't totally characterize the entire picture. As I said, I don't know the context for which he was saying what he was saying, because sometimes you have to look at the entire context for him to say. But if you expunge it from the value of what he has said, it's debatable. Thinking says, no, sir, although I don't like obedience, but EndSARS was by and for the oppressed Nigerians who are tired of not being able to walk freely. The very agency responsible for safety of lives and property was completely doing the direct opposite.
Funny story, Jeffrey Bukola. Then President Muhammad Buhari also said that protest was targeted.
No, we're laughing at it.
Was targeted at his government to remove his government. Who knows what the next president or at least president will say?
I think some of our leaders, with the greatest sense of respect, there's a bit of trauma around. We've been ruled by the military. I've continued to say, everywhere President Bola Tinubu goes, everywhere our presidents go, you see the military man behind him. There are very few. He went to Ghana. The Ghana president who was being inaugurated had no military person behind him.
Let me show you guys something.
They were at the forefront of some of these military guys. So I can understand how they read.
Maybe PTSD.
Yeah, young people may not be able to read it the way they read things. Which is why someone like Mamandara lost his job when Vice President Shibajo took charge as acting president when President...
saw the National Assembly episode.
He just got DSS people went to the National Assembly. That's what happened during the coup, because that's the first attack. National Assembly. The executive will survive, the judiciary will survive, but the National Assembly... That's
the bastion of democracy.
Yes, that's why the Vice President then said, no, guy, you got to go. This is reckless. You want to put us back into the picture. So perhaps it's their personal experience, and you can't take that experience from them. But I speak to the merit of what we know it is. Whoever took it out of context and want to remove somebody in government, that's another kettle of fish.
Not at all.
On the flip side, this video maybe speaks the opposite of what you see normally around people in power, except that this is the wife of the president. She's not elected, but you understand that there's a lot of security around her, but we understand that Senator Oluremi Tinubu stopped her convoy to greet school children in Kwara State. So maybe you want to take a look at this and see how that played out. And we'll come to tell you what Nigerians have been saying about it. very lucky they didn't have to, some of us had to unlearn the old
We're still learning.
And still but for a lot of them, they've caught that anthem easily, and they sang it to the pleasure of the First Lady right there. Bukola,
And
do you remember your school days?
Jeffrey has refused to learn the old new national anthem.
Bit by bit, you learn the first
I learn in
stanza,
bits. I just feel like an anthem orphan. So I'm sorry. It takes a while to heal.
Well,
it's a law. It's a law. We have to respect and obey it.
Well, the video brings back memories. I've had to do something like that as well as a young secondary school student.
For which of the presidents or governors or?
Well, I'm not going to mention it.
So we can position you in the timeline.
In the military era. The first coming of Buhari.
Or the first republic.
It was the first coming of Buhari.
Oh, really?
Oh, dear, Jeffrey.
Perhaps around the first coming of Buhari.
Not that far back, no, but I won't mention it all the same.
Former President Buhari, I should say, first coming.
Or head of state, as it is.
Head of state, yeah.
Speaking of videos, we still have more videos to show.
Yeah.
This time we're going back. Should we go back?
I think that the statement by El Rufai is fitting. What he said about the APC, how he says he no longer recognizes the APC. So lots of people, particularly within the APC, have been doing a lot of talking these days. I mean, we talked about the former governor, former minister, Rotimi Amechi, speaking about, power and how power is taken or given, as the case may be in Nigeria. But former governor of Kaduna State has also been speaking different times, really. People wondering if he's still in the APC or not. But of late, he's been speaking particularly about the nomenclature of the party, whether or not the party is able to solve Nigeria's problems or whether or not the party is the same that he knows. Reminds me of Dariat Alade's song, Another Girl I Used to Know. So Mr. Nasir Rufai says the APC is not recognizable to him anymore. Let's take a listen.
Well, there's a lot. I had a lot of political talk that day. Well, himself and Bola had exchanges online as to Daniel Bola, who is one of the spokesperson of the president, has engaged. And I said, if you were in government, would you be saying this? He's saying that whether he was in government or not, he's bold enough to say certain things. Whether he would be saying this is a different kettle of fish. But what was funny to me was Malam Nasir Rufai advising opposition how to be opposition. Gather. Look, this is politics. But we can't take away the merit of what he was trying to say as well. But we can't take away politics. It's a mix of both. Him looking at the government for maybe his failings, inadequacies, and some of the things he's not doing. But we cannot take away the fact that he's also playing politics. It's a mix of everything. And they all do it. You understand?
Well, former Governor Nasir Rufai has always been vocal.
He's a very bold person.
Very bold. During the last administration, he was in the forefront of the fight against the Naira currency redesign policy. And I think he was one of the governors who took the federal government at the time to court.
Yes, he was.
Over, the need to interpret the design policy and, the role that the federal and state government had to play in all of it. And even on our own program, he called out some of the officials of the former administration, for being responsible and manipulating the president. So you can't take that away from former Governor Nasir Rufai. He's a vocal person. He speaks truth to power. But then there's also a lot of politics, involved in all of this. What role did the administration play, or members of the administration play, to see to it that he didn't become a minister? Remember that screening when it looked as if, some members of the National Assembly stood up against him, bringing out security reports, and here we are today. He's not a member of the administration. And remember is it personality clash now between him and his successor that saw the State Assembly rise against him? So he's sort of a lone voice in the wilderness right now as far as politicking within the APC is concerned. So there is a huge political undertone also coloring all of this.
It's interesting. Politics, when they say look like this, look this way. So there's a game. There's actually something going on ahead of 2027. It's already started. In fact, this cuts across board. So that panel had former Vice President Atiku Abubakar had himself Olujimi, the former minority leader, I think from Ekiti State.
Ekiti State, yeah.
So it was an interesting conversation how everybody was giving their view. People like Rotimi Amechi, former governor of Rivers State as well, had actually talked about some other things as well. And Atiku Abubakar, former Vice President, took a jab at him that there was a time they went to Rivers State for an event. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, the place was literally empty. They were asking, what's going on here? He said, they told him that the people they paid, they paid for 2 hours, so they've all left. So that's the economy of mobilization that you were talking about. So there's a lot going on. There's alignment, realignment. As a matter of fact, we thought that people at Nasser El-Rufai perhaps would have been in government, but the screening kicked him out for security reasons. And so, as you said, lone voice in the wilderness, and he speaks his mind, no matter whose ox is God. So everybody's aggregating. We've seen Sheikh Showumi himself and a couple of other political leaders trying to aggregate, because what they are saying is that
Gabam too, of the SDP. Sheikh Gabam was part
of the SDP.
Yeah.
So what they are trying to do now is to say that, look, you can't just remove this, especially in Nigeria. A sitting government is not easy to remove. Either a merger or coalition is how you walk around it. So perhaps this is more like rallying everybody around to see how to get Tinubu out of government in 2027.
Are we going to see an alliance between or amongst these lone voices in the wilderness in 2027? And where will it all lead, by the way?
We don't know.
That's a possibility. But what I also want to see is, if you have anything to say to Nigerians, say it while you are in government or while you're in power. Don't leave power and start revealing things to us. Tell us about the rot while you're in there, because all of a sudden, people find their voices when they're out of government, and you're like, why need to tell us about this? Well, they say table manners is basically not talking.
Me, I've always also, before, as we begin, let's read some of the comments, but before that comment, you remember the local declaration in Abeokuta, when now President Bola Tinubu said, he told Muhammad Buhari then that, look, don't worry, we're going to get this, but after this is our turn, my turn, so it's my turn. This was a private conversation. I remember when Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was campaigning, went to Kaduna. The governor of Kaduna said Nasser El-Rufai left his seat as governor and gave it to Asiwaju. So my question now as a journalist is, what did Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu discuss with Nasser El-Rufai as far as succession is concerned?
Fair question.
It's a fair question.
Fair question.
Fair question.
Because of what you raised. Fair question.
Fair question.
So is there another way of saying, what's the compensation plan for former Governor Nasser El-Rufai?
I like that.
Why didn't he get it?
Because you always have
in the political calculation of 2023 to 2027.
Okay, so the first comment here says, Letton says, they become sound intellectuals immediately they are far away from power.
And Honorable Luatosin says, is he just seeing all these lacuna now after his 8 years in office as a governor? Almost all he itemized have been a problem for years. He suddenly realized APC isn't working towards the set goals. You have Uche Bakadi.
Yeah, it says the military never left. That's what this user believes. They just changed uniform from OBJ to Buhari. If the family tree were to be drawn from root to branch of those that run civil society, they have military blood in their DNA. Okay, unfortunately, no vision than personal fiefdom. Very deep word said, I must say. So there you have it. Some of your thoughts and views, but you can keep them coming on WhatsApp, or you can just tag us on any of the social media platforms. But we're seeing your comments on YouTube as well, and we'll of course be escalating them during the course of a conversation. But we're segueing. I have to use that word. I almost got lost.
Yes, indeed.
It's energy.
Gliding into the next conversation, away from a bit of politics now to deliberations on the African continent to deliver energy to 300 million Africans without electricity. It's called Mission 300, a partnership between the African Development Bank, the World Bank, and other development partners. So joining us on this conversation is Mr. Chibueze Eke, who is the CEO, Sizola Energy Limited. He joins us from our Abuja studio. We also have Mr. David Arinze, a renewable energy specialist, who also joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning and welcome to the program, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Chibueze, Mr. Eke. So it sounds very lofty and ambitious from the surface, but if you look at the funding instruments, that they are drawing from, how should this be executed such that it doesn't end up another talk shop, by African leaders converging and wanting to deliver on good infrastructure to its people?
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I would say it has been a great one having over 24 African presidents represented in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I know typically we would expect it's mostly talk, but I know that this time it was something different. The African presidents have come together in partnership with the African Development Bank, the World Bank, and they have all come together to say, look, if we have over 1 billion people in Africa and about half of them lack access to electricity, let's do something to make sure that at least 300 million people get impacted before the year 2030. So that's a good mission and that's a good vision. Now, what we are going to really be doing now is to, put our mouth, put our money where our mouth is. And as a country, we need to dig into local financing, local currency financing, because it doesn't make sense to go and hope that a lot of money comes, but we don't back it up with local funding. So I see a lot of potential for private sector developers, for the public sector here in Africa. Different African countries and their presidents need to look inwards and ask themselves, what are we really going to do to close this gap? And I think that's where, despite the challenges, there are definitely opportunities. And just coming back from Tanzania, I was happy to see the energy in the room, and I'm confident that our leaders would actually deliver for us.
All right. Let me come to you now, Mr. Arinze. Speak to us about what Nigeria, can get from this, particularly because there are reports that 80% of the people in the world that are without electricity are actually drawn from the African continent. So Nigeria has the biggest chunk of this.
Thank you so much, and good morning again. There are a lot of opportunities here for Nigeria, and of course, when you look at the delegation, our president was on ground with the relevant, with some of the ministers and also different captains of industry from representing the private sector also here in Nigeria. It presents a lot of opportunities for us to rapidly bridge the energy access gap we have. And knowing fully well that SDG 7 has a timeline of 2030, so we have 5 years to get into 2030, and this bold target is to ensure that we bridge the gap, energy access gap, for these millions of the millions of Nigerians and even Africans who do not have access. It presents an opportunity for financing. So finance is on the table. It's one engagement that has also said, hey, we don't just want to drive this as government, but also the private sector has a huge opportunity to play within this. And for me, one of the things that I'm really excited about this initiative is the opportunity where countries have been able to present a blueprint through the compact on how they will tangibly electrify the peoples and the lives of the people and the businesses in those countries. And so for Nigeria, it's access to financing, capital that would unlock more capital. The whole essence of this approach is to see how providing this sort of catalytic capital can unlock more private capital, because why are we where we are? Part of the gaps that we have currently in this sector is the lack of financing that is required to move things. And this sort of initiative puts a lot of action beyond just words. And if I recall the statement, or one of the statements by the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, he said we need to go beyond megawatts of talk and get more megawatts of power to our people. And allow me to say more gigawatts of power to our people.
Very interesting. Let me come back to you, Mr. Arinze, and basically just ask you, in terms of cost now, we understand that Nigeria, for example, needs an investment of $10 billion if we want 24-hour electricity, according to the Minister of Power. But 8 billion naira has been set aside for sensitizing people on power-related issues. And we see the trend for America, for example, saying, well, we're going to drill oil. We're going to ensure that we do whatever works for us. So if it's the so-called fossil fuels that works, we'll go for it. So the environment is not really in the equation for a country like America, because it thinks we have these resources, let's use it. So when you weigh renewable energy against the traditional means of energy generation and all of that, which is really cheaper, and what should work for us as a country, not what is being prescribed for us as a country? I hope you catch my drift.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. When you look at where Nigeria sits in the globe, you see that we have huge potential for solar radiation, for solar development. Now you ask yourself, for you to be able to produce energy for people to consume, you need to look at the different costs and the levelized cost of electricity, depending on the kind of source that you're considering. There's a cost for generating electricity through gas. There's a cost for generating electricity through solar and through other sources. And so for Nigeria, for where we sit, we see that solar has a huge role to play as part of the sources that we have access to. You look at the hydro potential as well. So we have a number of sources that which forms our energy mix that we can explore. So we wouldn't be prioritizing just one source as against the other, but it's a mix, because what is most important is to ensure that we keep the lights on. And in order to ensure that we get that done, we need to also look at what are the sources that ensure that we can generate this same power at the least cost. Now, talking about the bold action by the Minister of Power, I think it's a very timely intervention, because a lot of people need to understand in the country that energy is a commodity that must be paid for, must. And part of the challenges that we see today that is plaguing the sector and impacting finances is because people are not able to clearly see the profitability for them to be able to lock in their investment that enable the sector to scale. And so bold actions like this that the minister has already declared that the country will be taking in order to ensure that a lot more Nigerians understand the role that they play in ensuring that we deliver electricity to them. Also, just that's on one hand, but also keeping the utilities accountable, keeping the generation companies accountable, and other relevant stakeholders within the ecosystem that ensures that we keep the lights on. So this is not just trying to see, whether we're trying to adopt the technology, but we have to be able to look at the science, look at the opportunity that is presented to us. Nigeria, if you look at the data, last year was hotter than the year before. And we have clearly seen that part of what is significantly contributing to issues around climate change is the fact that the Earth is getting hotter as a result of the kind of fossil fuel sources that we're using. So these are practical ways to ensure that we do not keep on going, hitting up the earth, like I like to say, but ensuring that we use solutions that is able to get every home and business in Nigeria electrified.
All right, let's look at the data aspect of it all. How much of this is data-driven, particularly because it's not just a project that will be executed in Nigeria alone, but also the entire African continent. Mr. Chibueze, I'm coming to you now. So how much of it is data-driven? And as far as data is concerned, how should this be executed?
Thank you very much. In terms of data, out of the 300 million people that lack this access, a majority is in Nigeria. Now, in Nigeria, it will surprise most Nigerians to know that about half of our population is in darkness. Now, the kind of work we do is that we go into rural communities where people are already living there and they haven't had electric poles or lights before, and we energize these communities. We bring electricity, we bring a source of livelihood for them, improve their income, ensure that children can actually study at night, ensure that women can give birth at night safely, making sure that in terms of public health, there is enough refrigeration, cold refrigeration for vaccines. So when you talk about impact, I mean, the benefits are immense, and the numbers, you can imagine the multiplier effect in terms of sustainable development, in terms of really growing the economy. For Nigeria, this presents a huge opportunity because with the amount of investment we are looking at least $10 billion, it's clear that this cannot come from the government alone. We definitely need private players to come in and think innovatively. How do we unlock some of the pension funds to come in as
do you see
patient capital, long-term capital?
But do you see a preparedness as far as Nigeria is concerned on that level? Because back home, we just know that there's a significant portion of Nigerians that are without electricity, but we can't actually put a number to it. So are we approaching our participation at this summit with the requisite data, to enable planning and, pitching for the investments that would require, such that there can be accountability in the expenditure of the investment to power those homes?
Very well so. And I would say this because I have already seen how the federal government, through the Rural Electrification Agency, has done a lot around electrifying rural communities. And there are ambition plans for funding to come into the space to, take that to the next level, to scale that up. Now, in terms of scaling that up, what that simply means is, rather than us depend on only the national grid, which we know hasn't really moved the needle much in terms of getting power to Nigerians, we have to think innovatively. We will have to leverage distributed renewable energy resources that are easy to use, easy to build, easy to scale, and that can actually reach the last mile, those who are hard to reach by the grid. So a lot of funding in the world today is going towards climate finance, is going towards innovative approaches to electrifying people, to giving them access to electricity, to better their livelihood. So in terms of the data, I am confident that if we as a country come together, put our acts together and ask ourselves, how do we make sure that we industrialize not just in the urban areas, but most importantly in the rural areas, so that rural farmers can be able to go to farm, process cassava, process palm oil, take these to the urban centers, ideally leveraging renewable energy technologies like solar, like hydro, and also even leveraging electric vehicles to take these products to, where they can actually earn more by selling them. I definitely know that that can catalyze the economy, and Nigeria can become a way better place. So
has the work of the Rural Electrification Agency led us to know that indeed, there are 100 million homes across the northwest and northeast regions that are without electricity, such that they can plan for this endeavor?
Very much so.
So do you have the data? It's the data that I'm after. So do we have the data? Do we have that data?
Yes, you'll be very surprised that we do. We have that data. I mean, in this country, we have data of people with the NINs, with the BVNs. So if you're talking about people who don't have electricity, there's definitely data on them. It will surprise you so.
But we don't have knowledge of it. That's the issue. If we had it, it should be in public domain, shouldn't it?
Should actually. And I think what you can see in the next few days is going to be information about not just the data, right, but the information, the insights you need to make key decisions in terms of investments. And I'm sure that, the relevant agencies very soon will make sure that you have that awareness, and then that way we're all in this together as Nigerians.
Okay, I wonder if Mr. Ake has different opinions on the same subject matter.
Thank you so much. I would say that when you look at where the kind of actions that is taken from the presidency down to the various ministries and agencies, Nigeria today, through a very important initiative by Mr. President, has ensured that the Ministry of Power and all the relevant players are kept on their feet. One, to ensure that energy access is brought to all those who require them. Two, to ensure that we are taking the relevant steps required to mobilize financing. And 3, to ensure that we reduce the prevalence of lack of quality and affordable electricity to people. And so this is being done, and just like Engineer Chiboy had said, Nigeria today has that data. There's a lot of mapping that has been done, a lot of government initiatives have gone, a lot of work, down to all the geopolitical zones in the country, identifying down to communities that do not have access to power. Now, you may ask about the availability of this, but I will tell you that with the programs and the initiatives that are planned, all of this would be in the public domain within the near future. And we just need to ensure that everybody understands that they have a role to play in getting Nigeria to the point that we need to get there. And I would just like to also say that when we talk about data, we should also look at the opportunities for us to create jobs as a result of these new initiatives. We have a very youthful workforce, a workforce that can be skilled and reskilled to drive this sector. Nigeria has adopted the SDGs, which is the framework for development across the globe. And you see that if we achieve the SDGs by 2030 globally, we're able to unlock 380 million jobs. That's huge. And now think about it, cascade it down to the largest economy in Africa, the largest country also in Africa, the amount of jobs that would create even within these value chains. And so this is creating a lot of thinking for the government. How can we even begin to ensure that we set up much more industries that are producing these technologies, that are making them homegrown, that are strengthening our education system, that is just doing a lot more work to capture the vibrant workforce that we have and leverage it for not just our country, but also see how we can also call it a big brother to other countries around us, thereby bridging this energy access gap that we have to, by all cost, bridge.
Well, you forgive a lot of Nigerians if they're still very skeptical about the power sector. I think that's one of the major headaches they have as a people, and this has been on for decades. So some of them, even if they want to believe, it's really tough to believe. They've seen promises upon promises, agreements upon agreements, and we're still where we are, as they say. So maybe we can speak to what we should do different this time around, and whether or not we should raise our hopes as Nigerians, right? Again, this is some sort of agreement between heads of states and government, but each country has to do the yeoman's job, because I'm not sure Ghana is going to try to help us. If anything, other countries are relying on Nigeria for power. So both of you, what must we do differently this time? And what should we do as a people to maybe put government on its toes? Some will say they've tried their best, but there needs to be consequences, right? So what must we do differently, and how do we ensure that there are consequences for failure and it's not the same thing over and over again? Mr. Eke, you go first, and Mr. Nrize can take it up.
Okay, thank you very much. I would say what we must do differently, 2 things. 1, we must think differently. 2, we must act differently. And I would take an example, looking at the issue of petroleum supply in the country, or petrol supply. I think this last Yuletide season, this last Christmas, was one of the first in recent years where we didn't have much issues around, fuel scarcity, and that was because there was, a change that resulted in a price signal that gave investors confidence to ensure there was supply. If you bring that to the electricity sector, what you then realize is that we actually need similar drastic change in terms of making sure that Nigerians understand that electricity comes at a cost. It is not free. However, there are other benefits that come from electricity. And so what that simply tells us is that, in terms of paying for power, we need to pay pay for a cost-reflective tariff, which, as long as we pay for that, there will be the right signals to give investors, whether it's in the local market or in the foreign market, to come in and make investments for power supply to be available. So for us, if we think differently about power, where we don't only depend on supply from the big generating companies through the transmission system, but also look at localized, embedded power solutions, which at this point, for us to quickly close the gap, we need to leverage on modern technologies, clean technologies like renewable energy sources, solar and the likes. Then what that means is that we would then be looking at an opportunity to scale up power supply where at different feeders, different pillars, different transmission, different clusters in the country, different communities, we ask ourselves, what is the best way to ensure that there is 24-hour supply in this particular location? If we do that across the country, whether it's in the south, whether it's in the north, whether it's in the west, whether it's in the east, you'll be very surprised what we can achieve in a very short time. And I believe within the 5 years to 2030, we can actually electrify at least 60 million Nigerians. And you can imagine what that does in terms of putting us, just like India, other countries were able to leapfrog and get the most people out of poverty, even in China. I already know that in Nigeria, if we take power very critically and we say, look, as a country, let's focus on making sure that power gets to almost every Nigerian in the shortest time. You and I cannot imagine what will come out of that in the near future.
Okay, well, let me come to you now, Mr. Arinze. Same question. And I'm trying to channel the energy from Nigerians into this question because it's a major pain point. So what must we do differently? And I want you to speak to repercussions for anybody who drops the ball.
Thank you. I would say that a few things are important. We have a market, and a market can thrive because you have paying customers. On one hand, Nigerians need to ensure that they are faithful and committed to paying their bills, electricity bills. It's a business. But also, I would say that we see this very important initiative by the Minister of Power to sensitize Nigerians. When this sort of engagements come, this is an opportunity for you as customers, as citizens, to engage with your government, who, in fact, with the arm of government responsible for the quality of power that you and I experience. And so, this sort of platform should be engaged very seriously. You know, ask the hard questions there, ask the tough questions there, ask questions that ensure that the government understands that its citizens are putting them on a point where they expect them to be accountable. Also, Mr. President has set in place a unit that, which includes the Ministry of Power, to ensure that the goals and the mandates that needs to be achieved to ensure that every Nigerian has electricity is being monitored closely. Next, we need to ensure that even as we walk through the various segments of the sector, we need to understand that Nigeria is open, for investment. I'll tell us for a fact that it takes all of us to get the sector to where we need. The customers who ensure that they're the most important part of the value chain to pay for the service, but also putting those other players across your utilities, across the distribution companies, across the transmission companies, and even the generation companies accountable. But again, I would say that Nigerians should not go to sleep. We need to ensure that we are asking the right questions and engaging more consistently. The Ministry of Power, through this initiative and many other platforms, would create citizen engagement opportunities. People should go all out and ensure that they keep the government accountable, because nobody else can put the government accountable than the people that it has promised to serve. And so we shouldn't fold our hands and say, oh, they will do whatever they like. But we would be at the front of this, asking the questions that require us to get the service that we so desire.
And we hope that indeed that process of keeping government accountable from the part of the people is smooth sail, without any hindrance, without any inhibition, so that we can achieve the Light Up Africa project that we desire, particularly on this side of the divide. It's an ongoing conversation, clearly. Absolutely. So we thank you very much, gentlemen. Absolutely. Mr. Chibueze, aka is the CEO, CISOLAF Cisola Energy Limited, who joins us from our Abuja studio, and Mr. David Arinze, renewable energy specialist, who also was talking to us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
And so from how to get energy, when you indeed have the energy, how do you expend it? Join us again for the next conversation coming up after this break.
Welcome back. Let's talk to our techie. Aki Bitoye joins us to bring us an update on what we need to fix with our device. Today he's talking about update. Aki, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, you know, whenever we have a new device and we install a new app and they say update, because of scammers and fraudulent people on the internet, everybody's literally scared. Are they trying to make me update so that they can get into my privacy and all of that? So walk us through why we should not ignore and what we should pay attention to when updating.
Okay. We tend to miss the fact that software are just lines of code. We see those beautiful icons, the user experience, you click, you see all the animations. They're basically just lines of code. For those who have been in computing long enough, MS-DOS, those Windows, you'll be typing just text on the screen. The whole operating system was just 4,000 lines of code. Yes, but as of today, Windows 10, Windows 11, it's about 50 million lines of code. If you're using an Apple computer, for example, that's 85 million lines of code.
I can imagine what DeepSeek and ChatGPT will be like.
Those runs in billions, because they have a lot of reference points. So these code are not perfect because they are written by humans. So there's always a flaw here and there. That's why they release software updates to patch the flaw, to patch the security vulnerability. So there are some people, that's their work. All they do is search for bugs in code, in software, whatever the software is. They just look for vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and to exploit. So the publishers or the programmers issue these software updates so that you can patch such. Why should you update? To protect yourself. It's very important that about some years back, I think some of our businesses around here were still running Windows 7. That's Microsoft Windows 7. And the support for Windows 7 ended about a decade ago. So what it means is when new vulnerabilities are discovered, Microsoft is no longer pushing updates for it to patch those vulnerabilities. And if you are running a business or you are running critical infrastructure using the operating system, it can be targeted by malicious actors. So you have virus, malware, all of those software. What they do is they just exploit the gaps in the system, like a backdoor, so to speak. So you want to update to keep your data, to keep your information secure. Over time, what you would notice is the software becomes buggy, it becomes laggy. Sometimes your computer restarts at opportune moments. Sometimes it just becomes slow for no reason. It's because...
Yeah, my device is currently, okay, it has stopped for a while.
It has stopped for a while, good. Once there's an update, you should just update. However, with caution. You remember a couple of months ago that globally, airports were down because there was a software update that was faulty. So everybody that was on that software updated and the whole thing broke, and it was a global phenomenon. So software updates seek to just help with compatibility issues as well. Outdated software, sometimes you want to install a software or an app on your device and say, sorry, this device is not supported. Apple is actually very, very notorious for this. There are certain apps you want to install, say, sorry, this app requires maybe macOS 13 minimum or iOS 15 minimum. So you need to go and buy a newer device.
Well, I don't want to talk about any specific, but for some of these things that they do, some of these companies, is it about really technology or marketing?
It's both ways.
Because
you don't become a $1 trillion company by allowing people to use 10, 15-year-old devices. So what you do is gently you nudge them towards the newer devices. So when you update, or there's an update for your device, so someone, a couple of years ago, someone reached out and said, and so I bought this antivirus and I paid for it, and he's telling me to update. So I said, update is not either you pay or not. Update is there are newer vulnerabilities discovered, there are newer viruses, newer malware that is being published every day. So what they do is they write the code to counter that vulnerability, so that when you update, you will find your device performing up to par.
How to stay on top of updates.
Remember, back in December, our first episode of PC Fix, I mentioned that how to save your data, that you should disable automatic updates. Oh. I remember that. So now, you enable automatic updates when you are in an unlimited Wi-Fi connection. Why? Because the updates would help your computer.
So to update whether or not you're aware of what's going on.
Exactly, that's automatic update. If you are on the limited data plan, is why you should put it on a metered connection. But what automatic updates does is keep you up to par with what, because that is the job of the publishers. The manufacturers or the people who write this software are constantly looking out for vulnerabilities. They actually pay bounty hunters, people that actually go test their software to look for bugs. They pay them. So it's a big time business. So once they find this flaw, they write a patch, that's a code, that's the update that they push to your computer. Regularly check for manual updates. As is the case as with the situation I mentioned earlier, when the whole software broke for airports globally, you would want to back up your data. This we take for granted until the day the computer is no longer working. See, I have my project on this computer and it's not coming on. What do? I've spent months on it. I understand. So what you would want to do is back up your data. You have cloud options on your computer. You have a backup. You can buy an external hard drive.
Because I wanted to come, but sorry for cutting in. I wanted to come to the issue of space and memory when you're talking about backup. Then you now mentioned cloud, which is quite important. I want you to expatiate on that as well. Cloud
storage is a double-edged sword.
Really?
Double-edged sword, as in whatever you put online can be used, can be harvested to train most of this AI. They will tell you they don't, but usually they do in the background. So if you want to put anything online, make sure it's not proprietary. For example, you have an intellectual property, something you have not yet, what's it called now, trademarked. That you don't
keep it off the cloud, keep it off the net.
Keep it offline. Keep it on a flash drive or an external hard drive, and just keep it off the internet. Anything that is online can be accessed. That's something to be very wary of. It's very important to have your data backed up in multiple places. If it's on your computer gets stolen, it crashes, there's something wrong with it, it does not boot up, that one is gone. Your backup will save you.
I can imagine how terrible it would be. Maybe you want to defend a project or something on the day it crashes.
Project is the least of your worries. Imagine your wedding photos or your wedding videos. So you cannot go back and invite all those people again. So there are some critical data that you have, you want to keep. The ones that are not sensitive, you can keep them in the cloud. The ones that are sensitive, please keep them offline.
Okay, let's talk about how do you schedule some of this that you've highlighted.
Yes.
You know, I know you have talked about depending on what data plan you're on, you decide to whether keep it on limited access or updates. But for people who don't have maybe that level of resource to be able to afford that, talk to us about how they can schedule their updates.
A couple of the internet service providers, some of these telecommunication companies, what they've done is if you are accessing or using internet data in the middle of the night, from 11 or 12 midnight.
Yeah, about 11 o'clock.
The internet data plans are usually very affordable. So what you can do...
They give you free.
Some of them do.
Yes. When you buy the normal one.
You're an OG. You remember the days of midnight call. So what you'd want to do is schedule the updates to run from 12 midnight to 6 a.m. You would have to keep your computer on.
That is an important statement you made. So how do people schedule? Maybe walk us through. I know you don't have that slide here. So where do they go to setting? Maybe walk us through mentally.
No, if you're on a Windows computer, you can just go to settings, updates, schedule updates. So what the computer also learns how you use it. It knows when you're busy. Most times, once you get to the office 8 a.m., you are using your computer till around 5 p.m. Those are your active times. If an update is running and it needs to restart, you might lose the work you're working on. So if you write schedule when I am not working.
So you literally need to mark it for it.
You can mark it for it. That, schedule when you are not busy time. So it takes it from midnight. Usually it's midnight around 6 a.m. So your computer needs to be on. Then it runs the update, it restarts. Then you're fine. In the morning, you can get gone. However, I should sound a note of warning. If you do not back up, updates can break. Updates can be faulty. There's a million things can go wrong with computers. Technology in general. A computer you just used now, You can just go grab a bottle of water. By the time you come back, the computer is no longer on.
All right, let's talk about some of the key takeaways that we should look out for as far as this conversation is concerned. So maybe a wrap up, if you will.
Yes.
So for people who we're just coming on board, let's walk through it.
It's very important to constantly check the health of your computer. I mentioned in one of our previous episodes that a couple of things wear out in a computer or a mobile phone. Your battery.
Oh, yeah.
Your battery is one of the things that will wear out. The second is the screen. The screen will wear out, and the third is the storage. But for computers, we run a computer. When you buy a computer brand new, or maybe refurbished, you notice that it's working very well. But over time, it begins to slow down. Sometimes it's the hard drive that is wearing out. Because these devices have been manufactured, these components have been manufactured by 10 years ago for some of them. And it takes a while before they get here.
All right. Fantastic. Aki Bitoye, what's your, is it Instagram, Twitter? What do you do?
Hey, Bitoye, across board.
Aki
Ibitoye.
Across board.
Yeah.
Aki Bitoye, our techie, who brings us up to speed as to what we will do to improve the quality of our devices. We thank you for bringing us up to speed.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful
All right,
day.
we will take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll get to the next leg of the conversation. Join us again in just a moment.
Well, let's take a look at what the dailies are saying this morning, and we're going to the streets of Port Harcourt. From time to time, we'll go around the country at those designated newspaper spots just to feel the heartbeat of Nigerians. And this morning, we're going south-south. We were in Lagos the last time out, southwest, but today we are in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, where our correspondent Deborah Agbalama joins us from a very popular place in Port Harcourt. Deborah, good morning. I can see that Port Harcourt is busy this morning, but walk us through where you're at and then the daily you're starting with, Deborah.
Okay, Kayode, good morning to you and the rest of the studio. Well, this is because by Road. It's a very busy junction in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. And where I'm standing is actually a paper, a national daily vendor, both local and national daily. She actually sells papers. And one would think that with the invent of online news and all that, street paper reading would have faced off. But you can see from the crowd behind me that it doesn't look like it's going out anytime soon. But the problem is, as you see them here reading, they are all reading yesterday's papers. Today's paper is not yet available. And Vanguard, and we'll start with what we have for today. Then we'll now go to see what actually is. We're going to be checking their news site to see those of the papers that are actually out, but not in Port Harcourt, like I said. Here's the latest. We'll be speaking to her also later on. But let's go over to the headlines. And then from Vanguard, we have here that insecurity, how Asaba became home to Southeast indigents. This is the biggest story on the Vanguard. It says Asaba, a nearby towns to the rescue, living in Southeast has been horrifying. This is coming from Chekwas Okori. That is the biggest story on the Vanguard. And then we go to New Telegraph. And on New Telegraph, the biggest story there is Abdul Salami. I am proud my government battered Nigeria's democracy. There is no alternative to civil rule. This is, of course, the interim government that battered democracy in 1999. He was the interim president at that point. Abubakar Abdul Salami, he is saying he's proud that his government battered Nigeria's democracy. And he says there is no alternative to civil rule. So for those who are thinking that what's happening in the Sahel, that what's happening, of course, in the Sahel states might happen in Nigeria, Abdul Salami is saying that that's not ever going to happen. Just reaffirming what the army chiefs and the defense chief have been saying. Well, but let's go to the headlines from Lagos, which of course seems to be more current than Port Harcourt because people who are here are reading yesterday's paper. So we'll go over to Nigeria Tribune, and it says presidency, El-Rufai trade words over governance, oppositions. This is the biggest story on Nigerian Tribune. it goes ahead to explain that be ready to defend your votes. Amechi tells Nigerians, says politicians kill, maim, should remain in power. So those are the biggest stories. You agree with us that it's been a lot from El-Rufai lately. He's been talking so much about the present government and what they are doing wrong. And well, he's saying that the government can do better than what they're doing right now. And that is the biggest story on Nigerian Tribune. We go over to the next. And the next story we have is from Nigerian News Direct. I never wanted a position in Tinubu's government, still El-Rufai. Nigerian News Direct, El-Rufai is still saying that he never wanted a position. You're aware that at some point his name was presented to the Senate for screening, and there was a lot of drama around it. Eventually, he wasn't screened. He wasn't a ministerial nominee at the end of it. So it looks like there are still some grievances left around, and people are thinking maybe he's aggrieved, and that's why he's opposing the government. But everybody is saying that I do not oppose the government because of I didn't get a slot in ministerial nomination. Rather, it's born out of the desire to see something better in the country. And then we'll go over to the next paper we have here. This one is from Daily Independent. Now, a group of experts, legal experts, are saying here that they're endorsing state policing. They say state police implementation is the main thing for now. That is the major stories on Daily Independent. Now, they gathered in Ilorin, where they had a meeting and then a conference where it was basically about discussing the possibilities and the advantages of having state policing. That's been an issue that has been lingered for a long time, saying that the governors can only have full control and be chief security officers in their various states if state policing is implemented, so they can actually, the CPs in these various states can be answerable to the governors to some extent, and they can control the security apparatus. Well, there have been some people saying also that, well, state policing might not work because you might find a situation where the governors would also abuse power. Well, at this conference, they also talked about possibility of, creating a framework that also controls the activities even while it's implemented. Okay, so that is what we have.
All right.
Coming from Daily Independent. And then we go over to The Guardian. And on The Guardian this morning, the biggest story there says, optimism as West African cities get $50 billion lifeline fresh bid for electricity. Now there is a meeting of over 300 African leaders at Tanzania where they discussed possibility of giving power to an estimated of 600 million African cities that have 600 million African people who do not have access to electricity. And so part of the discussion they held in that meeting is that they should assist these countries to have power, and they are really from donations and all that, from of course the World Power, they've been able to raise $50 billion to invest into or to inject into power supply in most African nations where they do not have power supply.
Right.
Well, they target that these cities should have power by
Deborah,
2030.
Interestingly,
it's a very big junction that you can see.
Absolutely.
To control the crowd.
Yeah, so one of the major talking points on the show this morning, something we're following up with. Yeah, but let's hear from her. I think it's very interesting to know what business is like as we begin to wind down for her. So we'd like to hear from the lady, the vendor lady, Deborah.
Good morning, madam. Good morning. What's your name? My name is Glory Severton. Okay, I want to know whether they can hear you in the studio. Can you hear her clearly?
Oh, yes, certainly. We can hear Mary. Go ahead, Deborah.
Hello. Okay. 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 So this morning you explained to me some things when I came here. Yes. Can you just run it by us again? What happens when you come out here? And why are you selling stale papers? These are yesterday papers. Why?
Because of it's not coming early. Vanguard come early, Telegraph early, and so on. This day is after, like from afternoon from 12 to 1. Daily from the same thing. The Even actually the same thing, we don't have to go in the back of the car. These days, they have that for 12 o'clock. The guys so with the influence of internet, you are aware that at the moment people read more news online. News is now on the go. Have it affected business for you? For some people, use it headlines, everything. So we cannot meet up. Many things, they take it like that. For now. You can see her obviously still selling her papers while speaking to us. Right. She's selling. Actually, I've actually witnessed her selling, but what she's selling are actually still papers, yesterday's papers. And according to her, she sells it cheaper when it's a day old. So that is actually, interestingly, the crowd here is a lot. They've even reduced. All right. If you turn to the left as well, you see a crowd of people the same thing. All right, I wanted to just send the camera to the other side. So you can see that there's another paper stand there, and people also clustered there as well. All right. All reading.
Beautiful sights from there in Port Harcourt. Our correspondent Deborah Agbalama. So there's breaking news, there's today's news, and there's fairly used news from yesterday. And it looks like that's what we have largely in Port Harcourt. Thank you so much, Deborah, and it was great to hear from the vendor lady what the trends are. We've been speaking with our correspondent Deborah Agbalama, giving us newspaper report.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
From live on the streets in Port Harcourt, the River State capital. I think this is a wake-up call. Just ensure that people get their papers or their dailies on time, or of course, just stay right here on Channels Television, where we'll give you all the news real time. Well, let's talk about relationships now, because, hey, we're all humans, and they say that one way or the other, you need relationships to survive, and that's something we're big on, not just to help you know what's happening in the news, but know how you can personally live a well-rounded life. So whether it's news, personal finance, fitness, relationships, art, entertainment, that list goes on and on. So, Bukola, what you got for us?
Yeah, Kari, quite a lot I'm going to be engaging some of, but it's interesting to note that however little, there's still that economy of newspapers where people go to get their daily news feed. We can see quite a number of people there, you know, on the streets of Port Harcourt, and that is very heartwarming, if you ask me. But let's go to relationships now. And joining us to have this very, very important conversation is Dr. Stephanie Chizoba Huare. She's a founder, president, Heart to Heart Foundation, and convener, the True Love Relationship Conference, and a renowned relationship management expert, counselor, and cleric. Quite a lot that you have there on your CV, Dr. Huare. Welcome to the Morning Brief, right here on Channels TV.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start this way. This conversation is important because there's a buzz right now on social media over broken relationships, and it seems as if it's not going to end there anytime soon. And, you know, another aspect of the conversation is that it's being normalized. Do you sense a corrosion or erosion, as the case may be, of our values as far as relationships are concerned? And how can that be rescued?
Yeah, I sense quite a lot of corrosion, like you said, where a relationship is concerned. And a lot of people are actually involved in this relationship, and they lack quite a lot of knowledge. Most people are not endued with accurate knowledge on how to deal with people, how to relate with people. Even if it's in the company, even if it's social gathering, even if it's in the family, even if it's in marriage, whatever it is, you're dealing with relationship. Even parental relationship, you have that. So relationship is very necessary, but people lack the adequate knowledge to understand how to deal with people. You know, we are men, well, people are different in terms of you have personalities. So we're very different, and your personalities are very different. So if you understand someone else's personality, and also if you understand your own personality, it will help you to understand other people and know how to relate with them. So that corrosion that you have observed will actually be deleted and perhaps erased with time when we have adequate knowledge of what relationship is all about.
And speaking of knowledge, wrong choices seem to be at the heart of the conversation. So in about a minute or more, a little more, what is the foundational knowledge that people should have now as they make that all-important choice about their lifelong journey? Because that's what really it is, making a choice, to live with someone for the rest of your life. So what's the foundational knowledge?
Well, the foundational knowledge to, making a decision to have a partner or to choose someone to make that marital journey of life, it will require you to understand the person. Many people marry people who they don't know. You don't know that person, you have not understood that person, and then again, you have not understood the differences in the gender. We have gender differences. So what I see in the counseling room, a lot of people want to change people's personalities to theirs. But this is you relating with opposite sex. So for instance, if you need to make a choice to get married to a lady, what is the essence of that lady? What's the content? How does she think? How does she relate? Who is she? What's her emotion like? And this, you have to have that adequate knowledge. So also, if you're a woman tending towards this journey and you want to marry a man, who is this man? The content within this man. Bear in mind that we have general characteristics of the male gender, but also you have different habits that have been developed over years through environmental factors and trainings and knowledge that you grabbed in the atmosphere while growing up. So all those things become the essence of that person, which you have to understand. But most times people just see people on maybe in the club or maybe in the party or maybe in an organization or maybe in the office. They don't even give themselves that time to understand who they're dealing with. Does this person have anger problem? Does this person have some habits, hidden habits that I have to know about? And this will require time, because when people meet each other, they're first on their best. They are on their best. And so time will tell. And why will time tell? Because time will open up different scenarios through which there'll be a reaction from this same individual, how that person takes up, handles stress, how that person reacts over certain troubles, challenges, issues.
But Dr. O'Hare, some would say that the institution itself is a process of lifelong learning about that partner that you decide to, live with for the rest of your life. So at that knowing stage, or the interview stage, as it is often referred to, how long really should you spend getting to know someone before you make that all-important decision?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I would like to say, from my experiences, give yourself a year, minimum of a year. Give yourself minimum of a year to know the person. And the knowing we're talking about is not maximum knowledge of that person, but is a little bit, but the best thing is that you have to know that person at that time that you're dealing with that relationship. Yes.
All right. So there are a lot of unique cases right now, and I've even heard some relationship experts say you need to do a mental health check test for the person that you are courting or dating at the moment. But how do you even get to that stage in the conversation in the first place, without losing out completely? For instance, you tell someone that you're engaged to, we need to get a mental health check test, and that is a turn-off. So how do you handle, such conflict points in the relationship?
Yeah, while relating with your partner, most times you find out that the knowledge that you have observed, what you have learned and observed in that courtship or in that relationship will require you to stylishly encourage your partner to some test or the other. You know, sometimes you have this, some people even go to the extent of having HIV tests for themselves. Some people go to the extent of having blood group tests because they don't want any, you know, sickle cell personality to appear in their lineage. So some people can actually go to that extent depending on who you're meeting, but it's a very important observation that you have made and suggestion. Yes, you need to know whether this person is mentally okay. So if both of you have a conversation that can help you, both help the marriage, help the union, both of you can decide to go for a mental check. And that will help you understand how to flow with this individual. Because nowadays, our understanding of mental instability is not actually when somebody is mad and running on the street like we know it, you know, but some people are depressed and they are dressed up, looking handsome and looking beautiful, but they are dressed up and they are walking on the street, they are in organizations, and they might not even know what's wrong with them, but they are, you know, they are suffering from depression. So if you are courting, if you are in a relationship and you observe certain things that, you know, quickens your heart towards having a mental check, I will advise, please go and have a mental check. But don't do it as if you're pointing finger on anybody. Just use an inclusive term and tell yourself, okay, can we have a mental check for both of us so that we can be better and relate better for one another and to one another? That helps our relationship. So you can do a mental check, and many people do that. So it's not something that you get so worried about or ashamed of, you know, like in our culture. But it's good to do that. Thank you for that question. That's a good observation.
Indeed, it's important because there are stories that touch about when you're getting married and then finding somebody standing over you and about to do, you know, something out of the ordinary. But as we custom now, Dr. O'Hare, this is another important part of the conversation, how technology, the new digital age has impacted relationships, relationship choices. You know, some would say that there are no good people around anymore. So how should young people navigate, you know, the seeming scarcity of, you know, people who have good heads on their necks? How can young people navigate that?
Yeah, that's a good question there too. Social media has it has its good advantages. It has good advantages and it has disadvantages. So a lot of people have gone into the habit of trying to pick people off the web, and some of them have really had bad experiences, because you can't just meet people and they are the one giving you information about themselves and you are not observing and you are not watching. And to have that person live in your vicinity is very much key, because it's not only verbal communication you're looking at non-verbal communication. You know, the body talk and how that person, you know, relates. And the body talk seems to be the truest. I mean, it gives you the direct thoughts of the inner heart, that the body talk more than the words, because the words can lie, but the body language seem not to lie. A lot of people cannot hide that. So how to avoid, you know, choosing wrongly is to make sure that the person is your friend. Relate with people. First of all, think about friendship. Don't go ahead to insist on just getting along with that person and just marrying, but give yourself time to understudy this person and work with this person. Be a friend. In that way, you'll be able to marry your friend, because you have observed this friend in so many ways and through different scenarios. So I think friendship is the mark I'll hit on it. Try to engage that person in such a way that it becomes your friend. So you avoid all those mistakes that you do around here.
All right. Key words from this conversation. It appears as if time, friendship, and knowledge are the key words to watch out for. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephanie Chizoba Ohari, founder, president, Heart to Heart Foundation, and the convener, True Love Relationship Conference. Thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you.
And from this point, we head out to something that oils the wheels of relationships. Music. Stay with us for that. We'll be right back.
Martins Asogwa, Mars. Welcome back to the program. This is your second time on the program.
Yes, thank
Beautiful.
you, Jeffrey.
You did promise that you're going to release some project, and finally it's here, Roses.
Yes.
Talk to us about Roses, Mars.
So Roses is a project I dropped on the 2nd of December, 2024. That is about a couple of months ago.
Ahead of Dirty December.
Ahead of Dirty December. So Roses is a song that talks about love and appreciation. So it's a song for our loved ones, our family, friends, spouses and all that, telling them that you see them, you see what they do for you, and you are giving them the flowers for all the times that they've stood by you. So yeah.
I know you like the mid-tempo, not quite up-tempo kind of sound. Why did you, is it that that's your comfort zone and that's how you best express yourself? The reason I'm saying that is because of the kind of sound we're hearing in terms of everybody wants to vibe to some level of energy right now in the country.
So for me, it's a thing of feeling. So music for me is real, it's feeling. So at the moment I'm feeling mid-tempo. Tomorrow I might be feeling up-tempo. So it's not like I'm exactly confined to a space because I still have some up-tempo songs. But at the moment, I was just feeling grateful, I was feeling rosy. So yeah.
Rosy and grateful. So your body of work, I know that you've been in a reality show, you've done a couple of things. So when you look at your body of work, if we were to give a theme to how you characterize your sound, what would that thing be?
Oh, that's very simple. My sound is Afro Soul. So that's the genre I do. And Afro Soul is because I like to connect to whoever is listening to me, whether it's a mid-tempo, a slow tempo, or a fast tempo, up-tempo song. I always like to connect to you. It's a soul conversation for me, so that's why I call it Afro
How much of
Soul.
the audience of soul listeners do we now have in, you know, I keep going back there because of viability and sustainability of the craft, okay? So how much of it?
Yeah, I feel like everybody listens to soul music. It does. In this case now, this is more of like an Afro-fusion kind of soul. It's not the soul, the usual soul we know. So I feel like everybody listens to soul. Soul music for me is what applies to you, what you can relate to. So I do music based on relatability. So for my genre, as long as you can relate to it, it's connecting to your soul, and it's Afro Soul for me.
So besides the digital stream platforms, like I'm sure it's on the stream.
Yes, of course.
Are there places like you go to perform in terms of maybe weekly? Because for instance, in Las Vegas, they have residencies. I don't know whether I would do residencies here. So are there places like that have given you the opportunity to find further expression in live performance? Because your kind of music, your kind of person, your kind of sound, I can imagine sitting down to listen to it. It's going to be beautiful.
So yeah, there have been events like weddings. There have been events like, I have a couple of friends that organize some events, not regularly like you would say, because I know of one that happens in Bogobiri or something like that, and they are usually some Alte artists.
Where's Bogobiri in Lagos?
I know it's Lagos, somewhere in Lagos, but they have it on
The reason
Thursdays.
I heard that name, I know that there's something like that, I think in Cross River State called Bogobiri as well, where you have the people from Northern Extraction. They are populated in that area as well.
Amazing. So I know they do something like that, Bogobiri on Thursdays. There are some other performances, shows like that. But yeah, I look for the ones that I feel inclined to. And
so how many songs do you have so far besides Roses? Is this your first video?
This is my first official music video.
Okay.
So I have visualizers and I have an animation. So this is my first, and it's big for me. So
it's big, and it's beautiful to see how you interpreted that scene of empty chairs on, I don't know, is it a solar panel now?
Yeah.
What was behind that direction of art? I wish you could go there. Yeah.
So okay. So it's I love for people to make their interpretations of my craft, but I will do that now. So for that scene, if you follow the music video from the start to finish, you would notice that the chairs are arranged properly, orderly. So that's what my life with her is like. You understand? It's beautiful, it's sweet.
It's well put together.
Yes. So along the line, I lose her. I lost her along the line. And at the end of the video, when I've lost her, you see the chairs are scattered. That's what my life is like without her.
Is that in real life or in music video?
Anywhere.
All right, there's a part. Before I started talking, I said there's a part of the song I would like you to sing. I don't know, but you remember the part?
Yes, of course I do.
So I think that's your camera. So let's wind down. Let's get to it.
So it goes. No, but baby say your wish, is my command. Anything you want, I go surely order. Celebrating you like a first time caller. Hola, hola, oh my lover. Into my angle, my baby, mama. With it in my belly, with the laba, laba. Baby say no worry, me go day your side, me go day your side. To give you my roses, roses, roses for you.
I love it. There's a lot of two-face somewhere in my hair just playing around.
People say that too much.
No, it's true. I can hear a bit of... Did he influence you in any way?
Yes,
did he influence you in any way?
He did.
Yeah, no, Two-Face literally, it talks and sings. Literally, just sings by talking. I don't know how to explain.
He's a lyricist. I love it.
Beautiful. Martins Asogwa, a.k.a. Mars. Beautiful sound, beautiful video. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a quick break and then I'll catch up with my colleagues in just a moment as we wind down the program. So, hey, we're not done yet. Bukola and Kayode joins me in just a moment. All right, so Mas, I love the sound. Well, I wish I can sing like that. But I'm a retired singer. Bukola and Kayode, they're active singers.
I like the line, celebrate you like a first-time caller. If you're a radio person, you know how first-time callers are celebrated. Fantastic. And
with a drum roll.
Oh, yeah. And I think we should support our acts, stream his music, Mars. Just look for him online, stream his song, share with friends and family. Let's support good music, right? It's the best or the least you can do.
Especially with the economy, you need this kind of music that will calm you down. You know? Calm your brain, calm your nerves, calm everything down. When it's Dirty December, we turn up Burna Boy and the rest of them. If Burna doesn't come for me, by the way.
What a show it's been today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. It's Friday, so try to catch some rest, spend time with family. But stay right here with us on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Okikiri.
And let's not just support good music, let's also support each other. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back again on Monday. I'm Bukola Koka.
Enjoy your weekend and save your money. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.